Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the heart of the city, a bustling salon buzzed with activity. Amidst the lively chatter and rhythmic scissors, a man sat, seemingly unnoticed. The air was heavy with steam from hot towel treatments and the fragrant aroma of hair products. He flicked indifferently through the pages of a hairstyle magazine, his eyes briefly skimming over modern trends. "Attending to you now is Mara." A warm voice interrupted his trance. Startled, he looked up, expecting his longtime barber, Paolo, but was met with a surprising sight. Mara, a vibrant young woman with rebellious red streaks in her hair, secured in a disheveled bun, greeted him with a smile, her ear glittering with unique piercings. His curiosity piqued, he inquired, "Is Paolo not here today?" An apologetic receptionist leaned forward. "He's not well today. Tracy is covering his appointments." Oh. Disappointment flickered across his face. Paolo knew exactly how he liked his hair. Short on the sides, slightly longer on top, nothing fancy. Tracy beckoned him to the chair with a friendly smile. "First time with me, but don't worry. What are we doing today?" Nico settled into the black leather chair as she draped the cape around his shoulders. "Just a trim," he said, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "Nothing special." "Just a trim," she repeated, running her fingers through his brown hair, which had grown shaggy over the past 2 months. "I see what you mean. Getting pretty long, isn't it?" He nodded, already reaching for his phone. Haircuts were a necessary evil, not something he particularly enjoyed or paid much attention to. He scrolled through emails while Tracy gathered her scissors and combs. The salon buzzed with activity around them. Tracy made small talk as she spritzed his hair with water, but Nico responded with minimal effort, distracted by a work email that had just arrived. Something about quarterly projections being due sooner than expected. "So, how much are we taking off?" Tracy asked, combing through the damp strands. "Just the usual," Nico mumbled, eyes fixed on his screen. "You know, just a trim." Tracy hesitated. "This is my first time cutting your hair. What's your usual?" Nico looked up briefly. "Oh, right, just clean it up. Nothing drastic." He returned to typing a response to his boss. Tracy nodded slowly. "Clean it up. Got it." The snipping began, and Nico barely registered the steady fall of hair around him. The email required his full attention. His boss wanted the report by Friday instead of next Wednesday, which meant he'd need to work late tonight. Tracy worked in silence for several minutes, occasionally tilting his head or asking him to look down. Nico complied automatically, still engrossed in his phone. "This style is going to frame your face beautifully," Tracy commented at one point. Nico responded absently. 40 minutes later, Tracy put down her scissors and picked up the blow dryer. "Almost done," she announced cheerfully. The sudden blast of warm air finally pulled Nico's attention away from his phone. He looked up into the mirror and froze. "What did you do?" The words came out as a horrified whisper. His once shaggy masculine cut had been transformed into an elegant bob that curved just below his jawline. She had cut side-swept bangs that fell across his forehead, softening his features in a distinctly feminine way. Tracy, misreading his shock, beamed proudly. "Doesn't it look fabulous? This cut really brings out your cheekbones and those gorgeous eyes." Nico stared at his reflection, speechless. This wasn't just a trim. This wasn't even remotely close to what Paolo would have done. This was a woman's haircut. I said just a trim, he finally managed. Tracy's smile faltered. You said to clean it up. Nothing drastic. This is a classic bob. Very versatile. Versatile for women! Nico's voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby stations. Oh. Tracy's face fell. I'm so sorry. I completely misunderstood. When you said just a trim, I thought you meant to trim it into a style, not just cut a little off the existing style. Nico touched the silky strands in disbelief. His brown hair now swung forward when he moved, the ends lightly brushing against his face. Would you like me to try to fix it? Tracy asked, hesitantly. I could take more off. Make it more traditional. Nico studied his reflection more carefully. The initial shock was beginning to fade, and with it came an unexpected realization. The haircut didn't look bad. In fact, it somehow suited him. His face had always been on the softer side, large hazel eyes, high cheekbones, and a jaw that was angular but not overly square. The new cut emphasized these features, rather than fighting against them. Sir? Tracy prompted anxiously. It's fine, Nico said slowly, still studying his reflection. I'm just surprised. I really am sorry about the miscommunication, Tracy said. Your hair falls really nicely, though, and it'll grow out if you don't like it. Nico nodded, his mind racing. He'd need to explain this to his coworkers, to his friends. He could already imagine his roommate Ben's reaction. He paid for the haircut, leaving Tracy a modest tip despite the mistake. It wasn't entirely her fault after all. He'd been distracted. As he walked to his car, he caught his reflection in a store window and paused. The afternoon sunlight caught his hair, highlighting natural auburn tones he'd never noticed before. Auburn. That's what the color was. Not just brown, but a rich, warm auburn. Sliding into his car, Nico checked himself in the rearview mirror again. The haircut was undeniably feminine, yet somehow it made perfect sense on him. He ran his fingers through it, feeling how it fell right back into place. This is crazy, he muttered to himself, starting the engine. He drove home in a daze, alternating between anxiety about others' reactions and a strange, unexpected curiosity about his new appearance. Ben was sprawled on the couch watching basketball when Nico entered their apartment. Hey, I was thinking we could order... Ben's sentence cut off abruptly as he turned and saw Nico. Whoa, what happened to you? Nico sighed, dropping his keys on the counter. New stylist. Paolo was sick. She misunderstood what I wanted. Ben stood up, circling Nico with exaggerated scrutiny. Dude, you look like my sister. Thanks, Nico replied dryly. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. No, I mean... Ben tilted his head. It's weird, but it kind of works. You've always had that pretty boy thing going on. I do not have a pretty boy thing, Nico protested, though the comment struck a chord somewhere deep inside. Ben shrugged. Whatever you say. You're still ordering the pizza, right? I'm broke until payday. Just like that, the moment passed. Ben returned to his game, and Nico retreated to his bedroom, oddly disappointed by how quickly the conversation had ended. In the privacy of his room, Nico stood before his full-length mirror. He wore a navy button-down shirt and khaki pants, his standard work attire. The masculine clothing contrasted strangely with his new hairstyle. On impulse, he unbuttoned his shirt partway and folded the collar differently, creating a wider neckline. He tousled his hair slightly. The person in the mirror looked different, softer, more authentic? Nico quickly rebuttoned his shirt, unnerved by the thought. That night, he dreamt of trying on clothes in an endless department store, each outfit more feminine than the last. He woke feeling confused, but strangely exhilarated. Over the next few days, Nico received a range of reactions to his new haircut. His mother, during their weekly video call, asked if he was going through something. His co-workers were surprisingly positive, though Martha from accounting did refer to it as brave. His boss didn't seem to notice at all. A week passed, and Nico found himself spending more time on his appearance each morning. He styled his auburn hair carefully, discovering that the way it framed his face made his features appear softer, more delicate. He caught himself using words like delicate in his thoughts and wondered what that meant. On Friday night, alone in his apartment while Ben visited his girlfriend, Nico opened his laptop and found himself typing "men with feminine haircuts" into the search bar. The results led him to forums and articles about gender expression and cross-dressing. He clicked from one page to another, fascinated. By midnight, he had created a new bookmarks folder and was scrolling through an online clothing store that specialized in women's clothes for masculine frames. "This is just curiosity," he told himself, as he added a light pink blouse to his cart. Just an experiment. He added a white pencil skirt, hesitated, then selected a size based on the detailed measurement chart. His finger hovered over the place order button for a full minute before he finally clicked, heart racing. The package arrived 3 days later, while Ben was at work. Nico had been tracking its progress obsessively, arranging to work from home the day of delivery. He signed for the discreet brown box with trembling hands and immediately locked himself in his bedroom. The blouse and skirt were wrapped in tissue paper. Nico laid them on his bed, staring at them for several long minutes before slowly unbuttoning his gray work shirt. He slipped the pink blouse from its wrapping and held it against his chest. The material was silky and cool against his skin. With a deep breath, he put it on. The blouse fit surprisingly well, though it emphasized how narrow his waist was compared to his shoulders. The color brightened his complexion, making the auburn tones in his hair stand out even more. The skirt was next. He stepped into it, pulling it up over his hips and fastening it at the waist. It hugged his body in unfamiliar ways, ending just above his knees. He turned to the mirror and nearly gasped. The person staring back at him wasn't quite Nico anymore, but wasn't quite someone else either. It was like seeing a familiar landscape from an entirely new angle. He needed something more to complete the picture. On impulse, he went to the bathroom and rummaged through a drawer until he found an old gift set his ex-girlfriend had left behind. Basic makeup items she'd forgotten when moving out last year. Nico had never applied makeup before, but he'd watched her do it countless times. He carefully applied foundation, blending it as best he could. He added a touch of blush to his cheeks, then lined his eyes with shaky hands. The mascara was trickier, but after a few attempts, he managed to coat his lashes without poking himself in the eye. Looking through his jewelry box, he found a pair of small gold hoop earrings from his brief rebellion phase in college. He'd kept his ears pierced, wearing simple studs occasionally. Now, he fastened the hoops in place, surprised at how natural they felt. When he finally looked at his complete reflection, the transformation took his breath away. It wasn't just the clothes or the makeup. It was the way he held himself, the expression in his eyes. For the first time, he was seeing someone who matched how he sometimes felt inside, a self he hadn't even fully recognized existed.
Stella,
he whispered to his reflection, the name appearing in his mind from nowhere. The woman in the mirror smiled back at him. No, smiled back at her. In that moment, Nico realized this wasn't just an experiment or a game. This was a revelation. Stella spent hours that evening taking photos, walking around the apartment, sitting, standing, testing how her body felt in these new clothes with this new identity. When she finally changed back into Nico's clothes for Ben's return, it felt like putting on a costume. Over the next few weeks, Nico ordered more items, dresses, different blouses, a proper bra with inserts, shoes that fit his feet but had small, sensible heels. Each package that arrived was another piece of Stella coming to life. During the day, at work, Nico maintained his male identity, though he began wearing slightly more fitted shirts, growing out his auburn hair a bit more. At night, and on weekends when Ben was away, Stella emerged, becoming more confident and defined with each appearance. One Saturday morning, Nico received a text from Ben. "Staying at Amber's all weekend. Don't wait up." Excitement bubbled through him. An entire weekend to be Stella. After breakfast, she transformed herself with practiced ease now. Auburn hair styled in soft waves, makeup applied with increasing skill, a navy blue dress with 3/4 sleeves that hugged her figure perfectly. Gold hoop earrings, a delicate necklace, and low heels completed the look. For the first time, Stella felt brave enough to consider stepping outside the apartment, just for a quick walk, perhaps to the coffee shop 3 blocks away. No one in that neighborhood knew Nico well. It would be safe. She grabbed a small purse, transferring just her phone, keys, and some cash from her wallet. At the door, she hesitated, fear and exhilaration battling within her. Finally, with a deep breath, she turned the handle and stepped into the hallway. The elevator was mercifully empty. In the lobby, the weekend doorman, not the usual weekday staff who would recognize Nico, gave her a polite nod as she passed. "Good morning, miss." Those 3 words sent a thrill through her entire body. Outside, the spring air felt different on her skin. Or perhaps it was just that she was experiencing it differently. She walked with careful steps, conscious of her heels on the sidewalk, holding her head high despite her nervousness. At the coffee shop, she joined the line, heart pounding as she stood among strangers who saw only Stella, not Nico. "Next, please," the barista called. Stella stepped forward. "Small latte, please," she said, pitching her voice slightly higher than Nico's, but not unnaturally so. "Name for the order?" the barista asked, marker poised over the cup. A moment of truth. "Stella," she replied, the name feeling right on her lips. "Coming right up, Stella." She paid and moved to the waiting area, watching other customers, studying how the women stood, how they checked their phones, how they tucked hair behind their ears. She was learning a new language of movement and expression. "Latte for Stella." She collected her drink and chose a small table by the window. Sipping her coffee, watching the world go by, Stella felt a sense of peace she couldn't remember experiencing before. Her phone vibrated with a text. Ben, sending a photo of himself and Amber at brunch. "Living the dream," the caption read. Stella smiled. "Me too," she whispered, though she didn't reply. After finishing her coffee, she walked farther than planned, enjoying the sunshine and the freedom. At a small boutique, she browsed through racks of dresses, purchased a light scarf that complemented her auburn hair, and chatted briefly with the saleswoman about an upcoming sale. By the time she returned to the apartment, Stella felt transformed, not just in appearance, but in spirit. This wasn't just about clothes or hair or makeup. This was about becoming who she was meant to be. The revelation should have been terrifying, but instead it brought clarity. For years, Nico had felt disconnected from himself, going through the motions of a life that never quite fit. Now, he understood why. The person he was supposed to be had been waiting to emerge. Stella had been there all along. Over the next month, Stella's existence expanded while Nico's contracted. At work, Nico began growing out his nails slightly, using clear polish. He switched to more androgynous clothing, still professional but less distinctly masculine. His auburn hair continued to grow, now reaching his shoulders in a style that drew compliments from female colleagues. At home, Stella flourished. Ben had noticed the changes in Nico's appearance, but attributed them to some kind of post-breakup reinvention.
Hey, whatever helps you move on from Julia,
he'd said with a shrug when Nico wore a pastel button-down to a bar one evening. But Stella knew this was about much more than moving on from an ex-girlfriend. This was about moving toward her true self. The decision to tell Ben came after a particularly vivid dream in which Stella was introducing herself to strangers at a party, only to turn and see Ben watching from across the room with a knowing smile. She woke with the certainty that hiding was becoming more painful than the risk of rejection. That weekend, she asked Ben to stay in for a movie night. They hadn't spent much time together lately, with Ben increasingly at Amber's and Nico, or rather Stella, seeking solitude for her transformation.
I need to talk to you about something,
Nico said as they settled on the couch with pizza and beer. Ben looked up, concern crossing his features.
You're not dying, are you? Because you've been acting weird for months.
I'm not dying. A deep breath. But I am changing. Yeah, no kidding. The hair, the clothes. You're like a different person lately.
That's actually pretty accurate.
Another breath. I've been exploring something important. An identity that feels more authentic than the one you've known. Ben set down his beer.
Okay, you're freaking me out. Just say what you need to say.
I'm transgender, Nico said, the words both terrifying and liberating.
I've been living as a woman named Stella when you're not around, and it feels right in a way nothing else ever has.
Silence fell between them. Ben stared, pizza forgotten in his hand.
You're serious,
he finally said.
Completely.
So, all these changes, the hair, the clothes, were me gradually becoming more comfortable expressing who I really am. Ben set his plate down and ran a hand through his hair.
Wow. Okay. This is
not what I was expecting. I know it's a lot. Can I meet her? Stella, I mean. The request surprised her. You want to meet Stella?
Well, yeah. If she's who you really are, then that's who I want to know.
Tears pricked at Nico's eyes.
Give me 30 minutes.
In her bedroom, she transformed with trembling hands. The navy blue dress again. It gave her confidence. Her makeup routine, now practiced and precise. The gold hoop earrings that had become a signature. Her auburn hair styled in soft waves, framing her face. When she emerged, Ben's eyes widened.
Holy shit,
he whispered. You're beautiful. Stella felt a blush warm her cheeks. Thank you. No, I mean it. If I hadn't known it was you, if I'd just seen you somewhere.
I never would have guessed. She sat beside him on the couch, smoothing her dress nervously. This is who I am, Ben. This is who I've been becoming. I can see that. He studied her face. Your eyes are the same. Everything else is different. But your eyes are still you. They talked for hours. Stella explained her journey, from the haircut revelation to her growing understanding of her true identity. Ben asked questions, some awkward, some insightful, all genuine. So, what happens now? He asked as their conversation wound down around midnight. I've been researching transition options, Stella said. Medical steps I can take, and I want to start living as Stella full-time, not just in secret. That's brave, Ben said. And for what it's worth, I think Stella suits you better than Nico ever did. 2 months later, Stella gave notice at her job. She'd found a new position in a different company where she could start fresh as herself. Her hormone therapy had begun, subtly softening her features and skin. Her auburn hair now reached past her shoulders, and she had perfected a professional makeup routine suitable for office work. The day before starting her new job, she met her parents for lunch. She had come out to them in a long, emotional phone call, followed by sending photos and more conversations. They were trying to understand, though they frequently slipped and called her Nico, then apologized profusely. You look happy, her mother said over dessert, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. Different, but happy. I am happy, Stella confirmed. Happier than I've ever been. Her father, quieter throughout the meal, finally spoke. I don't understand everything about this, but I understand enough to know that my child is still my child, no matter what name or clothes you wear. That night, alone in her apartment, Ben had moved in with Amber but still visited regularly. Stella stood before her mirror. She wore a simple nightgown, her face clean of makeup, her auburn hair loose around her shoulders. The woman who gazed back at her was becoming more physically aligned with her inner self each day. The changes from hormone therapy were gradual but real: softer skin, subtle shifts in how fat distributed across her body, the beginning of natural breast development. Hello, Stella, she whispered to her reflection. A year ago, she had been Nico, trapped in a life that never quite fit, receiving a haircut that accidentally revealed the truth. Now she was Stella, emerging into a future that felt right and real and full of possibility. She touched the ends of her auburn hair, remembering Tracy's words that seemed so long ago now. This cut really brings out your cheekbones and those gorgeous eyes. Tracy had seen Stella before. Stella had seen herself, had glimpsed the woman waiting to emerge from behind Nico's facade. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, a new job, new colleagues who would only know her as Stella. The continuing journey of physical transition, the ongoing conversations with family and old friends. But tonight, in the quiet of her apartment, Stella felt something she had searched for all her life without knowing. Wholeness. That haircut had been the first crack in a shell she hadn't realized she was trapped inside. Now, the shell was gone, and she was free. She turned from the mirror and climbed into bed, falling asleep as Stella for the first of countless nights to come, dreaming of possibilities that once seemed impossible but now stretched before her like an open road, waiting to be traveled. 1 year later, Stella stood in front of a different salon mirror, watching as a stylist trimmed the ends of her long auburn hair. Just a little off the bottom, she'd said with a smile, remembering how a similar phrase, misunderstood, had changed her life. The stylist, a woman named Renee, chatted as she worked. "Your hair color is gorgeous. Is it natural?" "Yes," Stella replied. "I never really appreciated it until I grew it out. Some people search their whole lives for this color. You're lucky." Lucky. Yes, she supposed she was. Lucky that Tracy had misunderstood. Lucky that the mistake had revealed a truth rather than simply creating an awkward few weeks until her hair grew out. After her appointment, Stella met Ben and Amber for lunch. Their friendship had evolved, but remained strong, with Ben becoming one of her most steadfast supporters. "How's the new apartment?" he asked as they settled at their table. "Perfect," Stella replied. "The natural light is amazing for my plants." "And the promotion?" Amber asked. "Still loving the new responsibilities?" Stella nodded. "The team is fantastic. And it turns out I'm much better at creative direction than I ever was at analytics. Who knew?" "I knew," Ben said with a grin. "Stella always had an eye for design. Nico tried to hide it, but I saw how you'd rearrange the apartment when I wasn't looking." They shared a laugh, comfortable now with references to her past identity. Later that evening, Stella attended her support group for transgender women. She had started going 6 months ago, initially seeking guidance, but increasingly offering it to newer members, just beginning their journeys. "And how are you this week, Stella?" the facilitator asked when it was her turn to share. Stella smiled, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "I'm good. Actually, I'm great. Today's the anniversary of something important, the day I got a haircut that changed everything." "A haircut?" one of the newer members asked. "Sometimes the most profound changes start with the smallest steps," Stella replied. "For me, it was seeing myself with different hair, which led to seeing myself differently altogether." She shared the story of Tracy's misunderstanding, the pink blouse and white pencil skirt, the gold hoop earrings, and that first moment of recognition in the mirror. "I caught a glimpse of who I could be, who I was meant to be, and I couldn't look away. I didn't want to look away." After the meeting, while walking home through the park, Stella passed a salon with large windows. Inside, a stylist was cutting a client's hair, transforming a shaggy, nondescript style into something more structured and flattering. Stella paused, watching for a moment. She wondered if the person in that chair was just getting a haircut, or if they too were about to discover something unexpected about themselves. With a smile, she continued walking, her auburn hair catching the last golden light of day. One small change, a mistake even, had revealed the person she was always meant to become. Stella wasn't the result of a haircut, of course. She had always existed, waiting for the chance to emerge. But sometimes, she reflected, reaching up to touch her hair, the journey to oneself begins with something as simple as scissors in the right hands at the right moment, and the courage to see yourself clearly when the opportunity presents itself.
Thanks for watching my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!